Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Welcome to our webinar from AI to Incident Response, Practical Cyber Defense for Tribes. My name is Kaylee Kuhn from TribalHub, and I'm thrilled to be here today with the team from Bulletproof. We're going to get started in just a second and let everybody join in. But if you wouldn't mind dropping in the chat and letting us know, if you could only use one emoji or word to describe your day or morning so far, what would it be? I think mine would probably be a laptop emoji. I've been a lot of work doing this morning, so thought that would be a fun question so everybody can join in and get comfortable. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started with our webinar. And special thanks today to our webinar partners, Bulletproof, a GLI company. Our presenters are Christopher Simm and Steven Duguay. You'll hear more about them soon. This webinar session will be recorded, and you'll be able to view the recording anytime on our TribalHub website. So you'll also receive an email with the link to this webinar, so feel free to share that with anyone on your team that may have missed today. Oops, sorry guys, getting ahead of myself. And here is a quick look at the learning objectives for today. Please be sure to use the chat or Q&A if you have any questions, and we'll make sure that those get answered. Okay, and for my fourth and final slide here, this is a reminder about our upcoming regional tribal technology forums that are starting in April. So if you have any questions regarding that, please refer to our TribalHub website at tribalhub.com or reach out to me. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor right over to Chris and Steven to start presenting.
Okay, I guess I'm taking over the screen share, Kaylee. So, hello everybody. So, welcome to From AI to Incident Response, Practice Cybersecurity, Cyber Defense for Tribes. So today, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you today. And again, with a lot of the increase in the organizations navigating like increasingly complex cybersecurity landscapes, where ransomware, identity compromise, third-party risk, and now, of course, a lot of AI-driven threats are no longer theoretical, but operational realities. Today is meant to be a very practical and grounded real-world conversation between real-world customer within your vertical, as well as their perspectives from a service provider such as Bulletproof, to give you some of that real-world reducing risk, improving readiness, responding to incidents effectively. So from myself, next slide. So again, my name is Christopher Simm, Chief Technology Officer at Bulletproof. I've been in the industry 20 plus years, for going from infrastructure to cloud architect to helping modernize and providing strategic guidance to many verticals within the industry, to now then specializing in making sure that data security, AI governance, and helping companies be as effective as possible when it comes to meeting their cloud and AI journey is top of mind. So along with me, I have Steven Duguay, so I'll let him introduce himself. Over to you, Steve.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name's Steve Duguay, and I'm the Vice President of Bulletproof's Managed Security Services Division. So I am responsible for two of our security operations centers, one in Canada and the other one in the US. So just wanted to say thanks for hosting us, and look forward to having this conversation.
No, thank you, Steve. And also, we have a nice highlighted feature today. I think he needs no introduction, but from Mystic Lake, Lee, I'll let you do your intro.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody. Lee Edberg, I'm cybersecurity director for Mystic Lake Casino Hotel and Little Six Casino for the tribal folks. We're Shakopee Medwakaton Sioux community here in Prior Lake, Minnesota. So been with the organization about 14 years, messing around in cybersecurity and steering committee, a member of the Tribal ISAC, which many of you are probably a part of or are aware of anyway. So happy to be here and help with the conversation.
Awesome. So if we have two wonderful leaders within the industry today, including myself. So as mentioned, so our key themes today, we're going to be having a nice real world conversation around these particular topics, and I believe these are all very top of mind, especially as different priorities, different challenges, a different mindset when it comes to ensuring that your people, your process, and your technology can be fully aligned. That we're going to be looking at different landscapes, different conversations about impact. Human risk is a very big and relevant topic right now, and as well, of course, the importance of modernization across your threat hunting and incident response. So throughout the conversation, we do have the chat open, so feel free to put your questions in, your comments in. But at the end, we will as well be having a focused Q&A. So you'll have a chance to unmute if you want, if you feel free to be able to speak your question. But again, we are hoping that we can provide as much knowledge and general guidance when it comes to the real world exposure we're having within these areas. So for section number one, and this is where I'm gonna start off to you, Lee. So from your experience, how has the threat landscape evolved compared to where you were preparing, 2 or 3 years ago within the travel space?
Oh, you're on mute, Lee.
Oh, I think you're on mute. Yeah, you're on mute, Lee.
Sorry about that. Great question, Chris. Yeah, the threat landscape obviously has continued to evolve and change. And, I think 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, the movement to the cloud continues at a fast pace. And years ago, the focus was on the perimeter. And I always like to use the analogy of the castle. So we protected the moat or the perimeter, and we threw alligators and all kinds of bad serpent tools in there to protect people from getting across the moat and into the castle. And as the cloud has evolved, it's no longer about protecting the castle, because all the people and the devices that they own are no longer just inside the castle. They've left the moat, the drawbridge is down every day. And so the threat landscape has expanded well beyond the castle and its perimeter. So now our focus is on identity and devices and data, and it doesn't matter where they're located or what time of the day they're on or who's using them. That's what we need to protect and lay our umbrella over. Of course, AI is increasing the speed and the effectiveness of those threats. So proactive monitoring and layered security controls, strong segmentation, those are all critical to help us reduce this impact that is constantly hitting us. And like I said, AI, the phishing emails, that it's not that they are getting more because they're getting faster, but they're getting more accurate and more effective. And AI is helping that. And so our control mechanisms continually need to be updated and to keep up. So that's kind of how we see the threat landscaping evolving. It's just becoming more accurate and harder and more voluminous all the time.
That's a good statement there. And you actually said something that made me want to kind of hit you with a follow-up question around now that there's so many different layers to the agentic AI, like they have identities now attached to all of their activities. And you mentioned keeping up to date with different components, whether it's your systems, it could be the identity, it could be your devices, could be your antivirus, your EDR, and different components. How would you kind of describe that now in today's day, where how are you keeping your systems and your configurations up to speed and up to date with your team?
Yeah, it's a great it's a challenge. We'll put it that way. I think for us personally, one of the biggest steps that we made was years ago. We found a partner, and not to put in a plug or anything like that, but I'm talking to you guys today. So Bulletproof is a partner of ours for those purposes. I was looking for an augmentation of our team. So we're blessed to have a decent sized team here at SMSC and Mystic Lake in IT, but it's not enough to cover all the things that we need to cover. And so I was looking for a partner that could help us evolve our threat detection, our threat remediation, and such. So we've moved down the path of saying we had a lot of nice what I'm going to say best of breed tools plugged in all over the environment that were helping us protect all that. And by consolidating all of that into a singleized platform, we leveraged the expertise from Bulletproof to help us make sure that we were staying current and doing best practice protection in all of those configurations. And then the alerting and everything would run through the SOC so that they could be checking for the false positives and doing that constant 24/7, 365 monitoring. That was huge because that took that workload off of our team on-prem and allowed that team to really move things forward. So we're really the boots on the ground, and we leverage the Bulletproof team to alert us and take some high-level actions if necessary during those midnight hours and such. But otherwise, they'll alert us, and then we'll go take care of the threat internally.
That was great. And just to kind of like summarize that, it feels and it sounds like an extended partnership or an extended part of your team, where if given the kind of the right amount of let's say either budgetary and approval requirements, that you've been able to offset and now even accelerate a lot of your business objectives because you have a trusted partner to provide that very kind of unique and specific business objectives. In this case, could be the monitoring, the threat remediation, the threat hunting, to help you then stay on top of the outstanding items within your organization.
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, as the business continues to evolve and they're constantly bringing in new systems or they have new requirements, our team can drive that and apply the right resources to make it happen in the time that they need it to. And we know that our day-to-day protections and our guidance, we can pick up the phone. That's an augmentation of our team. We're on first name basis with many of the SOC folks, and we can call them and say, this is what we're thinking about implementing. How is this going to work? Can you validate my thoughts here, or can we how would we address this? And so we use them in that fashion as well.
Awesome.
It's been a great partnership.
Yep. And I guess, and from that, I'm going to kind of switch it to more of the specifics on the impacts, and maybe I'll throw this one at you, Steve, where the attacks and the type of attacks are changing again frequently, and there's a lot of new names, a lot of new different taxonomy that's being kind of provided in the industry from a lot of the cybersecurity vendors to kind of keep us in order. But what type of attacks could you highlight, or incidents could you highlight for the audience here that you're seeing more of in the past, even let's say 2 years?
Right. I mean, we're still seeing like the techniques being used are still the same. The threat actors are trying to do typically one of two things, which is either target the individual through social engineering or target technology through vulnerabilities. So to answer your question specifically, we're still seeing phishing kits at an all-time high. This is where attackers use different methods. And what's made it a lot easier is the power of AI and being able to craft much more convincing emails and such. We're also seeing a significant increase in another type of attack, a click fix, where attackers cause errors or websites pop-ups. It's showing as a security alert, and when the user clicks on that or approves it, typically it'll be a PowerShell command that's running in the background. And then the last piece here that I'll touch on is on the vulnerability side. So we're seeing at least once a quarter that a major vendor has critical vulnerabilities either to VPNs or firewalls. So they're able to get in that way. So, but that's typically what we're seeing. But again, the tactics are the same. It's social engineering people or exploiting vulnerabilities in technology.
Okay, that's it's very interesting, and the type of tactics, because I kind of think of like, okay, the MITRE framework and the different ways attackers can be leveraging to get in. From what you see in the SOC on a day-to-day basis, how has these incidents or ransomware specifically events, has there anything actually changed in terms of like initial access or the first foothold that the attackers are gaining into the environments?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the initial access phase, again, it hasn't changed a whole lot. Again, there's two main ways that they're going to get in. What we've seen is that the dwell time has really gone down. And what I mean by that is in the past, when somebody got a hold of an account or a system, they would lay dormant for a significant amount of time before they actually deployed their malware and were able to compromise a network. What we're seeing now is that they're moving as quickly as 25 minutes to 45 minutes to start deploying that malicious workloads and starting to, deploy that ransomware. Luckily, a lot of the sophisticated XDR systems is doing a much better job at preventing that from executing. However, it's still a challenge for everybody. The threat actors know how to get around that. They'll do their reconnaissance really quickly. So for me, from a ransomware point of view, the biggest change I've seen is just how fast they can plan their attack and really compromise a company's network.
Okay, now this is very interesting, and it's almost like where we want to be able to battle AI against AI,
Yes,
red team
that's
versus
right.
blue team, attackers versus the defense, and so as that landscape is evolving more so with speed, the foundational components of the framework of how they get in and can they get to your business's crown jewels is still the name of the cat and mouse game, but speed and knowledge of the remediation is definitely top of mind. So great answer, Steve. Um, and I have a question here about a different type of risk now. So human risk, and this is where maybe I'll throw it over to you, Lee, where we're seeing now like if many organizations they're relying on third-party vendors of it could be from CRM support to managed support to different type of vendors to operational support. What do you think from a tribal perspective that should be more awareness should be brought when it comes to the risks that are involved when it comes to managing and dealing with third-party vendors?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge that many tribes are going to have, and again, under my understanding of the tribal landscape is there's tribes that are quite small and have very few resources, to tribes that are very large, right? So we cover the whole gamut, but for the smaller tribes specifically, I think they're kind of forced into, based upon their situation, having a lot of trust with that third party. And so the third party says, yeah, we follow best security practices. Okay, well, I need your product, so I'm just going to buy it, and I trust that's true. But I would highly recommend and support that we got to take a stronger look at third party risk management across the whole industry. We need to get validation and have proof from our third party vendors that they are following those best practices. Do they have attestations? Are they meeting the compliancy that they say they're going to? Do they have third party developers that are doing stuff for them on the side? And are they checking that code? Are they validating those things? And I, as the end user, you're updating that code and you manage my website, but you're using development for the world that is writing all of your code for you. But what standards do you have in place? And I need that stuff in legal documentation. I need to do my due diligence to say, it's not that I don't trust you. I like you. I want you to be my vendor. But I'm going to treat you like I do everything else with a zero trust methodology. I'm going to trust but verify, right? So I think that's some of the challenge that tribes are facing. It used to be you kind of could get by with a lot of trust that they're doing what they say they're doing. And in today's market, with AI and all the security features that we need to deploy for ourselves internally, I'm expecting that my vendors are deploying at a minimum anything that I'm deploying, and they're going beyond that. So secure your connectivity, secure your VPN, get your service agreement provisions updated, and then somehow be able to monitor what those third parties are doing and hold them accountable.
No, it's very, very, very thorough answer, Lee. And I'm just gonna connect it where it's if a lot of the risk still from an attacker side is social engineering, and it's getting to know the end user side on each of the organizations to be able to compromise their identities.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the organization side, such as the tribes, making sure that your due diligence is up to date, but as
Mm-hmm.
well as some of the configuration part, which kind of leads me into my next question, where if you go from the social engineering, identity, due diligence, but as well the actual employee side, where
Oh,
for employees, it's about access. So
mm-hmm.
and access is something where, like you said, it's a trust piece. We would just go and onboard or enable an account, create a user, and access is granted. Sometimes not a lot of questions are asked. So from your perspective, like how would you then manage the access roles and the type of projects and vendor change management to ensure that it's, let's say, revisited on recurring or audited basis? How do you approach that?
Yeah, for us personally, one of the big initiatives we put through many years ago was to put a fully functional identity access management program in place. So I'll kind of start there. By putting that in place, now I have some automation that I can take advantage of, so it's less resource intensive, if you will, from a human capital perspective. Um, and it's more consistent. So I'm automating my process from HR. HR is going to onboard somebody and hire them. I know what role they're in, and I've role based my entire organization. So I know what access, Chris, you're going to get based upon the role or the job and department that you're sitting in. Dynamically, that access. Um, so that's quite helpful. And in the not only from an automation perspective, but now from a governance perspective, I know when the request came in, I know when it was granted, I know why it was granted, and I know who's made any changes to it. I can track all of that now within the system. And then that allows me to free up my team's time to now conduct more audits of not only their general network access, but also their application access. Doing periodic role reviews to make sure that the role is still current, but then going up to leadership and getting them educated on what those roles look like, and then also getting their authorization that's the right access for them. So it's putting all of those controls in place and not just saying, hey, I'm Chris just started today and set up his access similar to what Steven is. When we did that, we found that we had access all over the place that nobody could keep track of. So the role basing was huge for employee bases. From a vendor perspective, we also wanted controls around when that vendor is remoting in to give us support on something that we've got going on in our organization. So we implemented a separate VPN type of connection that is also recorded. So all the vendors come through a separate VPN from what the employees would normally come through. And there's of course, all the controls in there, the multi-factors and all of that to make it right. But I think one of the key pieces is it's recording their session. So even if our person steps away from their desk for a little while the vendor is working on something, the whole session's being recorded. So I know what was done, when they did it, who was doing it, how did it happen, how did it cause a break. But I can proactively find those things as well because of the way our process is set up. And then managing that access, that remote VPN connection will only allow them to get to certain devices on the network. They can't see anything else.
Yeah,
And then that's obviously for periodic review as well.
yeah. So monitoring, auditability, zero trust framework. Those are all very key points there. And still want to stay on this topic around the vendor and the third party risk, because in the real world where we're seeing live events happening where all it takes is one supply chain vendor to become compromised, and their database of customers becomes a domino effect and may become impacted. And I'll throw this one towards Steve, where from a vendor side, what would be like a few or one of your most common but monitored risk factors when it comes to making sure that vendors are or should be aware of?
Yeah. I mean, one of the attacks that we've seen, and we see people fall for it more and more, is that let's say your vendor gets compromised and they get a hold of someone from their finances department's identity, and they're able to go through their email. That they'll go through and they'll see if there's any maybe invoicing that needs to happen, and they'll use that mailbox to send a request to get an invoice paid and so on. So you have to be mindful that if you are getting this type of email, there's nothing wrong with validating with the person with a quick phone call, or just making sure that that you have the checks in place, because we do see that, and it's quite frequent, and it's one of the ways that they try to exploit money out of companies, is that they'll look for those people who work in finance and try to exploit those identities, and then plan their attacks that way. I think the other thing as well is if you're having someone come into your network, so your network might be protected, all the different devices on there have a great XDR software, but if they're bringing in their machine and they're plugging it into your network, and that machine has been compromised, there's a risk there. So again, you just have to make sure, do your best in terms of making sure that they have their policies together. I know for us, we maintain our SOC 2 Type 2, which at least provides our customers the proof of what we're doing from a security point of view, what we're doing from a policies point of view. And again, you just want to do your due diligence when you're selecting your partner, and then as well whenever they're doing work, making sure that they have a proper employee offboarding process, so that if they've had someone doing work in your environment and they've left that organization, making sure that account gets removed from your environment. So all these things are things you would want to discuss with the vendor prior to engaging with them, and throughout the whole relationship. Again, making sure everyone's using best practices.
No, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of this is kind of holds true to that policy, procedure, and even the identity of staff members across vendors and organizations. But would you say, is there any assumptions that could be made when it comes to vendor security that really doesn't hold up in practice?
I think that the main thing again is just not having any assumptions as far as what they're doing from a security point of view, and making your checks and validating all these things yourself. It's really easy just to make the assumption that they're following best practices, they have all these policies in place, but getting a copy of that, asking them for validation. And again, just doing your due diligence whenever you're picking a vendor, and making sure that they're also abiding by your standards. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. And it kind of sounds to me where it's about a general employee awareness when it comes to do your own due diligence within within your own organization. Um, so I think my question is, and either one of you can answer this, but it's how important do you believe it is for employees to have proper employee awareness training? Maybe Lee, maybe Steve, it doesn't matter. Like it could be either one.
Yeah, I'll start with that one, and Lee, if you want to add on to it, go for it. I mean, to me, it's critical. Again, that it every single one of your employees is a target, and I would say in most cases it's not so much of a financial risk, because it's not easy to exploit money or anything like that from compromising an account. However, for me, it's always reputational risk. Again, if somebody gets a hold of your email account, they can send emails across all your contacts. And it just makes it difficult to rebuild that trust if they've known that you've had an identity compromise. So for me, it's key because everybody's going to get phished. Everyone is a target, and helping those individuals, and not just from a corporate or a job point of view, but it applies in their personal life as well. I know a lot of people that have lost money or been compromised because of their Gmail account or whatnot. So I think it goes a one step beyond just the company. It also helps those employees stay safe.
Stephen, good points, and I totally agree with you. Chris, I agree. It's critical. For us, one of the things that we noticed is years ago, we really did the awareness training on a compliancy level, right? It was a check the box. Did you get your awareness training on an annual basis? And the answer was yes. And what we have found is, as Stephen was alluding to, the human is the weakest link in this whole picture, right? We can put in all kinds of technology to stop stuff, and the weakest link is always going to be the human. They are the ones that are going to click on something, and it's not on purpose many times. It's unbeknownst to them, they clicked on the wrong thing. They fell victim. And AI is making that even more real, right? This really looks real. Yep, it is going to. You're going to have to look really hard now. But at the end of the day, we're now educating on a much more regular basis. So we have that formalized training, and we're hitting them now twice a year instead of once a year. We're not just meeting the compliance there, but then we're following that up with monthly and weekly communications on our wall boards, on our just nuggets of information through email, through our internal intranet sites that all the employees can see and look at. So they see it in the lunchroom, they see it on digital wall signage. The employees are getting this constant reminder of things to keep in track of. And as Stephen alluded to, it's not just for the organization's benefit. It's for them to take home and share with their parent, their family members, themselves, on how they conduct themselves in their day-to-day emails as well. No, I think it's absolutely critical. Education is one of the key components. You certainly need all the technology and stuff behind it as well. But if you're not doing the education, you can't just rely on the technology, because there's nothing out there that's going to stop 100% of it.
No, absolutely. That makes 100% sense, and kind of leads us right into our next section around the modern technology and the type of advanced threat hunting and incident response. And I'm going to start off with Steve with this section here around when it comes to the incident response side. What would you typically, let's walk us through a day in the life of an analyst? Like, what happens in the first 30 to 60 minutes of an attack?
It's what I would call chaos. And I'll be honest, we have the luxury of having a large team of a lot of talented people. So if a company calls us and they've had a security incident, or they're in the middle of a security incident, for us it's really about organization. And so we'll have an incident commander that will take over the situation. And again, having a large team, we'll be able to delegate certain tasks that are critical. So, the first thing we want to do is find out what the IOCs, what are those indicators of compromise, so that we can have somebody do some advanced threat hunting to see what's the scale of the compromise. We obviously want to lock everything down, and make sure that, again, that it's not spreading, that we have it contained. The next step after that is, finding out what happened. Was there data that got exfiltrated? Typically, we would know at that point if the ransomware had been deployed. So again, it's very, very chaotic, and it does require someone with years of experience, being that incident commander, to be able to delegate different tasks, and keeping that communication flow with that company. What I will say for the people on this call, the most important thing you can do to prepare for this is having an IR plan, and not just having the plan, but practicing it once a year at a minimum. where you want to go through all these steps because again, everything happens so fast. It's very chaotic. So you want to have a detailed plan. So, at some point you're going to want to call your insurance provider to make them aware because you could be working with a company on the incident response, but your insurance provider might have somebody that they would want to work on it instead. So they might kick out whoever was working on it and bring in someone that they want. And you also want to have a strong communication plan where you want to, communicate with your executives. You want to communicate with different teams that are going to be impacted by this. The worst case is that nobody knows what's going on. No one's taking the lead. So again, making sure that you have a plan, having it, you do a run through once a year to me is critical for all companies.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And maybe
Chris,
leave
can I
with.
can I add
Sorry.
into that a little bit?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, what we found on our side, you're right. We used to do tabletop exercises on an annual basis, and we worked with our insurance company, and usually got a third party like the insurance company to come in and host that. What we have found is we're now starting to do those more regularly because the meat behind it is, yes, you have an incident response plan. Yes, you have crisis management. Yes, you've got all of these documents. That's great that you've documented it, but if you're not practicing it, then they're really not going to do you any good, because when the day of reckoning comes, somebody's got to figure out where to find those documents at and then start walking through them. And if they're too complicated, that first 30 to 60 minutes, that might take somebody 30 to 60 minutes just to read through your incident response plan to figure out who's supposed to do what. That should be quick and responsive. So what we're finding is we're conducting not only larger executive tabletop exercises on a couple of times a year, but we're now starting to break that down and hosting our own internal tabletop exercises with individual departments on a regular cadence. Maybe it's every other month or something like that. And we're just meeting with individual departments to walk it through with them, so that we're starting to hit the masses, because trying to get everybody in the room for a 4-hour session once a year is a difficult task. But I can go through and I can hit the departments for an hour or two a couple times a month, or a couple times every other month.
Yeah, the thing I'll add to, you made me think of it, is by the way, your plan should not be on your OneDrive or in your email or anything like that, because
Right.
if something does happen, and we've seen this happen before, you could be locked out of your email. So making sure you have a printed copy of it in your desk is great.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And I would recommend, if you've got cyber liability insurance, work with that provider, because many times they offer that service. It's included in your premium that you're paying, that they'll come in and conduct that tabletop exercise for you. They may have offline storage available for you that is secured, that they'll be able to see in the moment of crisis, and you can get at it when your whole network is down. They offer those services, so take advantage of them if you investigate that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so great responses, guys. And yeah, the whole concept of incident response plans, business continuity plans, the practicing. Because if we don't practice, then it's the repetition that builds good muscle, a good way to quickly resolve the incidents that do continue to happen. Because we all have our business objectives, but the threat landscape keeps evolving. That it puts us in a position of it's an ever growing life cycle management that we're having to do as a partner.
Right.
But as we then now think about the modern technology and the threat detection and response landscape, from your perspective, Lee, since you're now partnering and using a modern SOC model, what improvements have you noticed since partnering with Bulletproof?
I get some sleep at night. Is that a good place to start?
Absolutely.
I mean, when by putting this in, I use the analogy of when we partnered up with Bulletproof and we implemented the Microsoft security front door to back door, that it basically placed an umbrella over the top of all of our our devices, our people, and everything. And so again, back to my castle in the moat, I've got an umbrella over all the things that are part of the organization, regardless where they're sitting now. And that threat detection now is real time. So I've got a proactive approach to identifying, hey, John took his laptop and he's in Cancun right now, Cancun, Mexico, and he's working, but he's checking his email and he's got malware on the device. We can isolate that machine before it has an opportunity to connect back to our network now. And the modern SOC team is seeing those alerts and identifying to us and letting us know that we've just disabled his account and we isolated the machine. So John's machine's not going to work until he gets back to the office, and then you guys can open that up in a sandbox and clean it up and take care of it. That's really helped us proactively avoid the catastrophe, because I live by the belief that it's not a matter of if, it's when it's going to happen. We're going to be attacked, but I want to minimize that attack surface. So through segmentation and all of that, yep, I might have a machine, I might have a group of machines that get impacted and brought down, but I will have stopped that problem or be alerted to it before it has a chance to spread evasively. And that's the model that I try to live by, and that's why I get some sleep at night. But having the SOC there 24/7, 365, even when I don't have people on staff in my building, yeah, they're on call, but they're not sitting and watching everything. The SOC is keeping us covered during those times.
Oh, amazing. And you made a comment there about the kind of that decision-making piece. But I guess when was it that deciding factor that you were like, you know what, it's time to start modernizing how we were doing things, how we were approaching your EDR, antivirus, managed detection and response capabilities. What made you decide to make that switch from using what you currently have from a legacy tools to modernizing and trying to maybe think of more of a platform as an approach?
Sure. So from the technology perspective, and I'm not exactly sure how many what I'll call the business side versus the IT side are joining today, but from the technical side, that's something that we always strived to do or wanted to do, but a lot of times it's hard to justify and get the business bought in, the people that are holding the purse strings, to invest in that environment. For us, what we found quite helpful was getting involved in the whole cyber liability insurance aspect. So that used to be something that was managed by legal and the business, and then they couldn't answer some of the questions anymore, and so they were passing some of that over to IT. And so IT leadership now is involved in the cyber liability insurance policies and understanding what they're asking for and what they're looking for, and identifying that they were starting to ask a lot more detailed questions about what type of technology and security defense mechanisms you have in place. And that was having an impact on what your premiums were going to be. And so that's when we kind of made the push and said, if we don't have some of these controls in place, we stand victim to being disowned by our cyber liability insurance. They don't need to cover us. So we need to be putting these things in, but in the same token, now's our opportunity to put in a proactive approach to security defenses to avoid. I never want to make that call to call in for a cyber liability claim. So I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. So if I put in the right proactive approach, I've minimized the amount of time that I'm going to have to go after that. And now I can work with the business and help them. Maybe you don't need to cover so much liability insurance and have such a high premium, and take some of that premium dollar and use it as a spend for the proactive approach so that you never have to make the call at the end. And so that was kind of a time for us when to make that, put in the infrastructure and such that we've got. And so there's a little bit of rob Peter to pay Paul in that we used some of the premium dollars that we were excessively spending on cyber liability. We still have cyber liability, but trying to channel some of them dollars to solutions like what we've got today.
That makes absolutely, Chris. Yeah. No, that aligns, and that gives hopefully gives the audience a bit of a strategic way to align, the budgeting activities around can we make the most out of our budgetary revenue to either maintain or maybe even reduce some of the expenses on that side.
Right.
And maybe from an advisory perspective, for you, Steve. So it's been known that there's still a lot of skill gaps and maybe limited staff capabilities within the entirety of the industry. But where can you maybe give some of the audience from the tribal organizations just a bit of advice around the focusing around improving the detection and response model?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll come at this question in a different way. So first thing that I'll say is that you are considered a high value target. So there will be attempts at getting you compromised and so on. So for me, it comes down to, what's your level of risk and where you obviously can't patch every hole. You can't defend everything, but you need to understand what the risk of a cyber attack can lead to. So you want at the very least, having a solid XDR, managing your devices. You want the same thing on the identity side, protecting your people. And you have to also understand that, if I've heard this from some of our customers, there's a critical vulnerability that comes out on a very important device. It's like, well, the vulnerability just came out yesterday. We have a little bit of time before we need to patch it. The thing is that those threat actors are searching that same information. That is what they're looking for. So, making sure that that is top priority, even when you have a small team. If there is a critical vulnerability, go ahead and get that patched immediately. And when it comes to the remediation and detection, obviously you want to have somebody watching that at all time, 24/7. It's difficult to do in-house. However, it is key. You can have the best systems in the world, but if you're not looking at the alerts that those things are generating, you're no further ahead. So again, I don't know the budgetary constraints on everybody on this call, and what's available to them, but again, if you're going to do it in-house, you need to make sure that you have skilled and talented people to look at those alerts that are coming through. Or if this is an area that you're looking to outsource, same thing. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence. We've already talked about the vendor side of things. So again, you need to figure out where your priority is based on the risk that you face.
Mhm.
No, that makes perfect sense. And and I guess as I try to wrap things up here, based on the many different topics that we were covering around the speed of AI, dealing with the challenges around the weakest links within organizations to improve personnel, the human risk factor with vendors, with third-party supply chains, and overall just finding strategic ways through either budgetary requirements, through best practices with incident response plans. Practice makes perfect, right? It's the continuous community and knowledge sharing across all these different layers is why we're here today. Is to kind of make sure that we're providing preparation tips, advisory. We're keeping the awareness that machines are moving a lot faster than humans can, but we are definitely able to leverage that same technology to still compete against the bad actors that are trying to maliciously, do harm to our organizations. And essentially, we live in a world and a society now where it's a new tool for us to play with, just like when we didn't have a touchscreen phone or we didn't have certain fiber optics network infrastructure where speed is now we can almost think it, type it, and we can get that information very quick. Uh, so with a lot of these things all coming together, it's going to be for us to continue to have these conversations as a community, to keep helping each other, uplifting and giving the right advisory, so that way we can keep the the knowledge and the best practices shared amongst the community. So and now when with that, I do want again. I see a few things in the chat, and maybe Kaylee, if you're also watching it as well, we can take some of the questions if you're able to share some of those with us.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any in the chat, but I did have someone ask in the Q&A feature, how do you separate alerts from investigations so your team doesn't burn out?
I'll answer that one. So it's definitely not easy. So what we've learned in our security operations center is that yes, there's such a thing as an alert fatigue. And you want to do your best at tuning those alerts out, especially when you know it's expected activity or expected behaviors. Where we're the way we do it. So if there is an alert that we believe needs to be tuned, we send it to our cab. And the analyst will present the tuning request, and it requires 100% approval from all our senior analysts for that alert to be tuned. The thing is that you have to be very specific on how you tune those alerts. You don't want to make it too broad. So again, it's not easy to do, but it's something that is 100% warranted, and you have to look at doing it if you are running a security operations center or managing alerts. The noise is real, and you do need to look at ways of minimizing that. To again, you don't want to get that alert fatigue where people are just assuming that alert is always a false positive, so they'll continuously close it. You want to make sure that every single incident that comes through has a proper investigation done on it.
That's a great answer. Thanks for answering that, Stephen. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, but I did just enter everybody's email, all the presenters for today in here. Oh, actually, we did just get a question over here. Sorry for that. Someone is asking, how have you solved the issue of executive leadership pushing back on the time and cost awareness of training rather than supporting the concept?
Lee, that sounds in your
Sounds like that's my territory, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great question, and I recognize that it exists. I think part of the value that we've got here at our organization, IT has a place at the executive table. So we have a VP of IT, and his ideas and such get embraced when they're sitting around having the executive conversations. And so the CEOs and the CFOs at that level, they're very supportive of making sure that people are trained and aware of what all of this could be. They're very supportive of cybersecurity initiatives, and we get them to talk about that on a regular basis. So when we come with initiatives, yes, we still need to justify everything that we're asking for. We still need to justify investments in any security platforms, tools, processes. That's normal, but I'm comfortable to say that I think by us meeting with them and having some FaceTime directly with them on a regular basis has created a relationship that the executives have a trust in what we're doing, and they're seeing the benefits of the awareness training. They're seeing that we're showing them the percentages of people that are not responding to our phishing campaigns that we send out. They're seeing that number come down. They're also seeing that we're not having major crisis instances, and so we're also doing reward programs to help the people feel good about taking awareness training. That's not a purpose of trying to catch them doing something wrong, but to reward them for doing something right. And that's gone a long way, and executive leadership is fully supportive of it.
Yeah, and maybe I can add on as well, like specifically around awareness training. See what you have as far as vendors. So what I mean by that is that for us, we're on the Microsoft stack. So if anyone has the Microsoft Defender for Office, there's actually an awareness training that is included in that. So customers don't have to pay more. They're paying for that license, and they get to take advantage of the awareness training that Microsoft offers. So yeah, and we've seen other customers do lunch and learns and things like that, again, to get around the cost of having to buy training. There's ways around it, but at the end of the day, what I feel is valuable is that you do the training with the people, but you need to test to make sure that they've retained that information, and being able to send out those phishing campaigns, simulate phishing campaigns to see if they fall for it is the way you do that. But again, not always easy when it comes to cost and getting that executive buy-in.
Right.
Yeah.
I would also add partnering up with your HR learning and development partners as well, because they can help push those initiatives maybe sometimes easier than it can come from IT, because they're there to support the human aspect of your organization.
Fantastic. I appreciate both of you for helping to chime in and answer that question. We had another question over here in the chat. Someone is asking, when vendors present their security controls and maturity levels during assessments, how do you independently validate that their claims reflect reality rather than aspirational statements or polished documentation?
Good question. It really comes down to sitting down and having the conversation. One of the things so we've got processes in place that, for example, we have an offsite data form. So the organization is looking at bringing in a XYZ system, and the business said, we want that. We've done our due diligence here within the organization to create the process so that the executive support is there to say any new technological systems that are coming in, IT is involved in the decision beforehand. And so then we get a chance to take a look at all of that from a agreement documentation perspective to the control or the how the system is configured and set up. So our team is working on that, and then we run through this offsite data form if it's a SaaS-based solution, and between network, cybersecurity, business systems, we all validate that, yep, all the right controls are in place, and there's less risk with this component, with this system. And then that routes up through our business leadership. So it's kind of a vetting process that we run through with that. But in doing so, all of those steps are a touch point that we're having with the technical folks at that vendor or that third party, and not just taking the salesperson's word for it, right? Or the account manager. I'm having direct phone conversation or face-to-face conversation with their technical resources to validate if this is really true, is this what you're really doing? So that's been our success in validating that anyway.
And if I can add something to that, and I do see something where Gordy had a follow up. This might answer both his state question and Ya's question as well, where from either both the awareness training pushback and the aspirational statements or polished documents from assessments, vendors should, and even business organizations should be thinking about the actual impact and cost relevance to that organization. So if what is your tolerance level if something is down for X amount of time, whether that be a business system solution, whether that be a custom solution, whether that be email, whether that be any of your business applications, if it's down for a certain period of time, or if something is compromised and lost, such as specific data locations or data storage components, what will that actually do to the business in terms of their financial risk? And that is going to help maybe paint a bit of a picture to the business leadership, to the stakeholders, or the owners of that company, to then shine maybe the true reality of, this is why we need security awareness training to ensure we can reduce that risk, and or to kind of paint the picture of, this assessment was done, and if you are aware of that business tolerance level, depending on what those vulnerabilities are highlighting, whether it's from an endpoint perspective, server perspective, infrastructure perspective, if any of those components were compromised or down, and it would impact you at a X amount of rate, that might give you a bit of clarity on, this is actually true and not aspirational.
All right, thanks for adding to that, Chris. I think we're going to start wrapping things up now if the presenters don't have anything else left. So thank you for joining today, and Chris and Stephen for sharing your insights, as well as Lee. If anyone would like to get a hold of them, please reach out to us at tribalhub.com. We'll make sure to keep you connected. I also listed the presenter emails in the chat in case you guys have any questions. Also look for the email tomorrow, and please share the webinar link with anyone on your team that may benefit from hearing this conversation. With that being said, this has been an amazing webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm wishing you all a very productive rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next webinar. Goodbye, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thanks.